Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahushai, by Shem Rakakodash Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh by Shem Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to Ya'akim out there pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Raya with another video, and I'm going to start it off at Revelation chapter 6 verse 4. Salakia. And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And this red horse is referring to Esau Edom, the so-called white man, that red Hebrew Edomite. When we go to Genesis chapter 25, it states that Esau was born red all over like a hairy garment. And then when we go to Genesis chapter 27, verse 38 to 40, we'll see that one of Esau Edom's blessings was the sword, that very same great sword in Revelation 6 verse 4, that red horse, Esau Edom, is used to take peace from the earth. And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven from above. Pretty much being in control of the entire planet, which these Edomites gained control of through that blessing, the sword, as it states in verse 40. And by thy sword shalt thou live. Esau's military prowess and equipment, the pinnacle of which are those nuclear weapons, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, which we're in Esau Edom's final dominion right now, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. And ever since you Edomites came into this little season of your rulership, beginning with the Renaissance, you truly have taken peace from the earth through this great sword. The most destructive conflicts have happened under your rulership: World War I, World War II, and of course this upcoming nuclear-armed World War III. You've got chemtrails in the sky. You've got cell phone radiation making people impotent, as well as giving them cancer. You've got GMO foods further giving people cancer and breaking down their bodies. You strip mine lands for their resources and leave them desolate. You've got pollutants in the ocean causing marine life like whales to beach themselves in record numbers. And of course, we can't forget all these conflicts you wage to steal people's resources, as well as set up puppet governments that are sympathetic to your dictates. A perfect example of which is the war in Iraq, which is what we'll be dealing with in this article on Salon.com titled "The Destruction of a Society. First, the U.S. invaded Iraq, then we left it poisoned. Scientists says bombs, bullets, and military hardware abandoned by U.S. forces have left Iraq toxic for millennia. And there was given unto that rider upon the red horse a great sword to take peace from the earth." The political and moral culture of the United States allows for bipartisan cooperation to destroy an entire country, killing hundreds of thousands of people in the process without even the flimsiest of justification. Then, only a few years later, everyone can act as if it never happened. In 2011, the U.S. withdrew most of its military personnel from Iraq, leaving the country in ruins. Estimates of the number of civilians who died during the war in Iraq range from 151,000 to 655,000. An additional 4,491 American military personnel perished in the war. Because the bombs have stopped falling from the sky and the invasion and occupation of Iraq no longer make headlines, Americans likely devote no thought to the devastation that occurred in their name. With the exception of Representative Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, who is currently polling at or below 2%, no candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination has consistently addressed the criminality, cruelty, and cavalier wastefulness of American foreign policy. Joe Biden, the frontrunner in the race, not only supported the war in Iraq, despite his recent incoherent claims to the contrary, but as chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, acted as its most effective and influential salesman in the Democratic Party. The blasé attitude of America toward the death and destruction it creates, and not just America, but you Edomites in general, you European Edomites, you Russian Edomites, etc., all while boasting of its benevolence, cannot withstand the scrutiny of science. Dr. Mazgen Sava-Bies-Fahani, an environmental toxicologist at the University of Michigan and recipient of the Rachel Carson Prize, has led several investigative expeditions in Iraq to determine how the pollutants and toxic chemicals from the U.S.-led war are poisoning Iraq's people and environment. The health effects are catastrophic and will remain so long after the war reached its official end. Slovakia. I previously interviewed Sava-Bies-Fahani about her initial research and recently acquired an update regarding her team's latest discovery that there is a close correlation between proximity to a U.S. military base and birth defects in Iraqi children. Average Americans, even many who oppose the war in Iraq, seem to believe that once the military campaign is over, the casualties of war stop accumulating. What is the purpose of your general research regarding the toxicity of the Iraqi environment resulting from American bombs, munitions, and other materials? How does the American invasion and occupation continue to adversely affect the health of Iraqis? Bombs and bullets have been used on an extreme scale in Iraq. Dropping tons of bombs and releasing millions of bullets leaves toxic residues in the air, water, and soil of the targeted population. These pollutants continue to poison those populations years after the bombing stops. What's more, the United States imported thousands of tons of military equipment into Iraq to use in their occupation. They include tanks, trucks, bombers, armored vehicles, infantry weapons, anti-aircraft systems, artillery, and mortars, some of which are coated with depleted uranium, and much more, an example of Esau Edom's great sword that he's used to take peace from the earth. These eventually find their way into U.S. military junkyards, which remain across Iraq. There are unknown numbers of military junkyards scattered across the Iraqi landscape. And also look up burn pits in Iraq. That's giant burn pits they had in the middle of U.S. bases where they would throw empty canisters, empty shells, munitions, you name it. And not only did it pollute Iraq, but it's left a lot of U.S. soldiers that were in the vicinity of it dying from devastating cancers. This devil doesn't even care for his own. Fluctuations in temperature facilitates the rusting and weathering of military junk, releasing toxic pollutants, including radioactive uranium compounds, neurotoxic lead, and mercury, etc., into the Iraqi environment. Uranium and its related compounds remain toxic for millennia and poison local populations through food, air, and water contamination. The exposure of pregnant mothers to the pollutions of war, including uranium and thorium, irreversibly damage their unborn children. And if you got the chance, go to Google and put in depleted uranium victims, and you'll see a bunch of pictures of deformed Iraqi children who were born in the years during the war in Iraq and the years after. We found thorium, a product of depleted uranium decay, in the hair of children with birth defects who lived in Nasiriyah and Ur City near a U.S. military base. The destruction of a society does not stop after U.S. bombs stop falling. Environmental contamination, which the U.S. leaves behind, continues to destroy our environment and poison our people decades after the bombs have stopped falling. The U.S. has a long history of irreversibly destroying human habitats, and that must end. And who runs the U.S.? You Edomites. No other nation of people throughout history have destroyed the planet in the way which you've destroyed it. Jorge, Daquan, or Abdul can't take any credit for bombing people with depleted uranium, that cell phone radiation, chemtrails, you name it. And this further proves that you Edomites are the sons of perdition in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who has been revealed to be that red horse, Esau, Edom. And when we go to the word perdition in the Strongs, it's G684, apolia, destroying, utter destruction, taking peace from the earth with that great sword, of vessels, a perishing, ruin, destruction, etc., etc. And where it says of vessels, the human body is a vessel. And as we're reading from that information in that article, generations of Iraqis, unborn children, you name it, have been negatively affected by these discarded munitions that the U.S. left behind in that country after the war. In your groundbreaking new research, you discovered that the teeth of Iraqi children have 28 times more thorium if they live near a U.S. military base. What is the significance of that conclusion, and what does the presence of thorium indicate about a child's health? What kinds of abnormalities and health problems will they experience? The Iraqi population is potentially contaminated with depleting uranium decay products. Baby teeth are highly sensitive to environmental exposures. Such high levels of thorium simply suggest high exposure at an early age and potentially in utero. We found uranium and thorium in these children's teeth and hair. Uranium and thorium were also in the bone marrow of children, all of whom had severe birth defects. The magnitude of public contamination caused by these alpha-emitting radioactive compounds is a serious question to be answered. Our bone marrow data is still unpublished, but we hope to publish it separately. Thorium is an alpha emitter, and once in the body, it can cause cancer and other anomalies. Impacts can vary depending on the timing and amount of exposure. Childhood leukemia, which has been rising in southern Iraq, is a verified outcome of thorium exposure. In our study, children with high levels of thorium had multiple birth defects. Our study showed that across Iraq, children exposed to U.S. war contamination suffer primarily from congenital heart defects and neural tube defects. 44 years after U.S. forces left Vietnam, there are still Vietnamese babies born with birth defects from the American military's use of Agent Orange. How long do you believe Iraqis will continue to suffer from the American-led war? If left unmitigated, the population will be permanently exposed to elevated toxic exposures, which can impact the Iraqi gene pool. That's pretty much it with this article. You get the point. But as you can see, this is just another example among a long list of examples of why you Edomites are a detriment to life itself. As it says in Matthew chapter 24, and except those days should be shortened, no flesh would be saved. If the Most High didn't shorten these days and not set those bounds which you Edomites could not pass, and you Edomites were allowed to rule indefinitely, this entire planet would be turned into a desolate wasteland. But thankfully, Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai set those bounds which you Edomites could not pass, and you've just about reached those bounds. What we're diligently waiting for is for the elites of you Edomites, you Rothschilds, you Rockefellers, etc., to mandatorily implement the mark of the beast, which is the RFID/NFC microchip implant. And once you do that, that's going to be the final nail in your coffin. Shortly thereafter, you're going to be taken out of power and put under subjection of the true children of Israel, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. First and foremost, the first fruits of the kingdom, the elect, the 144,000 and the rest of the righteous 1/3, who are going to be putting that foot in your ass for that first 1,000 years of hardcore bondage and slavery. And the whole earth is going to rejoice when you Edomites are finally taken out of power. This is Isaiah chapter 14. I'm going to read verse 5 through 7. Yahweh hath broken the staff of the wicked, Esau, Edom, the border of wickedness in Malachi 1 and 4, that red horse whom the great sword was given to take peace from the earth, the son of perdition, the devil and Satan, the wicked whom the earth has been given into the hands of in Job 9:24. And remember back in Genesis 27 how one of Esau's blessings was the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven, and the scepter of the rulers, he who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, bombing Iraqis with depleted uranium munitions, as well as leftover munitions, giving people thorium poisoning, dropping atomic bombs on Japan, dropping Agent Orange on Vietnamese people, chemtrails in the sky, GMO foods, cell phone radiation, strip mining the lands for its resources. You Edomites have a long list of things to pay for. Is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Point blank period. Even though these other heathen nations are going to take part in that first 1,000 years of hardcore bondage and slavery with you Edomites, afterwards they're going to be allowed to go back to their own lands and have some form of rulership, though still under our subjection, and they're going to be completely fine with it because they're going to finally see what a righteous rulership looks like and how the earth was meant to be governed, because the Israelites are going to govern the earth under the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai, which is going to return the earth to its former estate. It's going to go back to being the Garden of Eden, and all relations are going to go back to being normal. You're going to have the man over the household, the woman in subjection, the children in subjection. There's going to be no more pollution in the environment. It's going to be a very, very beautiful sight to behold. But as for you Edomites, after that first 1,000 years, the Israelites are going to gather you up, burn you up, and you're going to be eradicated from the face of the earth. You're going to be that nightmare that everybody finally woke up from. Now I'm going to close it out in Psalm chapter 9, verse 5 through 6. Thou hast rebuked the heathen. Thou hast destroyed the wicked, Esau, Edom. Thou hast put out their name forever and ever. O thou enemy, destructions are come to a perpetual end, and thou hast destroyed cities, such as Iraq with depleted uranium, dropping atomic bombs on Japan, Agent Orange in Vietnam. Their memorial is perished with them, again after that 1,000 years when you're gathered up and burned up. So with this video, I hope you sincere Akim are edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of Esau Edoms. And as always, I'm going to say Abba Ball, Kwam Yasharala. Till next time, Shalom.